Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 399, one short of the Big 400. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, once again, usual cast of characters: Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from Four Boxing News in the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
I think a lot of us are just barely recovered from the weekend.
Bruh.
Boxing was back in a big way this
I mean,
past.
yeah, I told Gail and Daniel my story of covering fights from the middle of the night with a card over in Japan and didn't end till middle of the night, early Saturday, and didn't end till in my night didn't end till Sunday morning this past weekend. So yeah, it's been rough, but I'm not gonna complain. I signed up for it. We all love the sport, and that's why we are here. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, site, blog, etc., talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it has to do with the sweet science, it will get discussed here. If you want to find out all information about Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to send us an email with questions, suggestions, etc., you can do so. P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find links to where to check us out all over social media, the links to the YouTube channel, the links to the Facebook, Tumblr, IG page, where you can find us on podcast platforms, be it Anchor, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, you will find the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. If you wish to donate, now that folks are getting their tax returns back or filing their taxes, or will get their tax returns soon. You can do so on the site. Got Cash Me, PayPal, active links there. And last but certainly not least, if you want to get your body right for the summer, please check out the links to Beachbody/BODI, Beachbody on Demand programs for any and all fitness interests. And if you hear some barking back there, don't worry, that's just Gail's boxer doing her thing in the background, wanting to be a participant in the show. It's all good. Beachbody on Demand again. If you were looking to strictly a program strictly to lift weights, I suggest you check out Lift 4 and Lift More, the newest version of the Lift series. Lift 4 just dropped for the public on March the 1st. If you're looking for more challenging, hit functional workouts, I suggest you check out programs like Muscle Burns Fat, 6 Weeks of the Work, 645. If you're looking for something to do in the morning, I suggest you check out Morning Meltdown. If you're looking for workouts will just focus on mobility and flexibility, there's a yoga workout. There's also PIO, Fire and Flow, just any and all fitness, any and all programs for whatever you're interested in. The P90X series still on there, particularly 2 and 3. I would suggest if you're looking for a boxing specific program, please check out 10 Rounds, 6-week program. 5 days a week. 3 of those days are boxing-based cardio. 2 of those days are devoted to weightlifting and resistance work. Or if, at the very least, please take advantage of the 2-week, 14-day trial on BODI now. And that is for 14 days, you get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody On Demand. Let's get things going. And going to do a bit of change here from our regular format because there were multiple cards taking place this past weekend and so many fights. As a result, I'm going to split these things up here, right? Have one person focus on one particular fight between the three of us, go a bit of a cipher here, try to break down as many fights as we can. Let's get started with you, Gail. Let's take it to Japan. In the return of Kenshiro Teraji, unified champion at 108 pounds. He was supposed to fight Jonathan Gonzalez, WBO champion, in a unification match, but Gonzalez, as we talked about in the last episode, had to withdraw due to complications from pneumonia. Instead, Teraji fought a guy of limited experience by the name of Anthony Olascuaga. Only 5 fights coming into this bout, but if you've seen him on video, the kid has some talent, and I have to give it up to Olascuaga. He fought a Teraji who, in my opinion, is the best in the world at 108 pounds, but Olascuaga gave a good account of himself, right? Um, Came out the gate firing, balls to the wall with his style. Uh, but over time, he just couldn't keep up with the pace. He was able to land some shots on Kenshiro, right hands, left hook, particularly in the early rounds. But you saw a pattern develop, Gail. First for 30 seconds, Olascuaga came out throwing hell, uh, throwing punches and bunches, right? Looking to land and land hard. But after that, you could see him slow down. The experience of Teraji took over, and he would win the remaining of the round. He finally got to Teraji. Finally got to him with shots, hurt him, stopped him in round. I want to say round 8, with my recollection, if I remember correctly. Um, Teraji, in the end, his experience, his skill, his knowledge proved too much for Olascuaga, but the kid Olascuaga was only like 23, 24. He gave enough to the point that you want to see him again. You want to see him again with some more experience, and you would have liked to see him again if he would have had a full count.
Absolutely. Can you imagine? He gets the call 10 days in advance of the fight. He's got to go from Los Angeles to Japan on 10 days' notice and face, a guy with 2 belts and the lineal title under this fight. And Olascuaga, he's 24. He has been a professional for 30 months. That's it. 30 months, 5-0. That was a big ask. And credit to him. He said yes. He took it. He bet on himself. He did lose. It was a 9th round stoppage, but he didn't embarrass himself. He deserved to be there. It wasn't a blowout by any means. Trainer Rudy Hernandez accompanied him. I thought gave him some good directions. And I think when he when he closed the distance well enough and really focused on the body, I think that's where he was most effective. But Teraji, it would have been impossible to compete with him on the same level, even if he'd had 10 more fights. Having said that, again, he didn't embarrass himself whatsoever. He's still a developing fighter. And talk about taking a master class from Teraji. He's going to go home to Los Angeles and have a lot to think over, some absolutely priceless experience, not just in the ring, but, the whole atmosphere and build up toward a major prize fight in Japan, where this is a big, big deal. And the loss isn't going to derail his career at 5-1. It's barely gonna hit the radar, and everyone will know, hey, that's the guy that went to Japan for the title fight. So we're going to see the payoff for Olascuaga down the road when he puts all the lessons he learned this weekend into action. Bravo to him for stepping up to take the fight. Even if it was the longest of long shots, because the rest of the weekend, we did see long shots pay off, and we did see guys who were underdogs that nobody had a lot of faith in pull it off. So I would encourage all of us to support the fighters who do this, not turn our backs on them and brush them off just because they suffer a loss in a situation like this. I look forward to seeing him again. And in the flyweight division, where the top talent isn't exactly flush, he'll definitely get more fights. And he is now known to the Japanese audience. I would not be surprised if they brought him right back fairly soon.
fight was the headline of a card that took place. It aired, live on ESPN Plus, right? So we're talking top rank. Give Olascuaga some time to recover from this, but to your point, Dale, this is nothing but a learning experience. He should get better. And if I'm the folks over at Top Rank, I'm trying to get Olascuaga back in the ring as soon as possible, right? Because he fought well, he showed talent, he showed heart, and there's something about him that says to me he could have some lasting power, right? And he could have some success in moving forward. So at the very least, I think I can speak for all of us and say we would like to see him again. As for Teraji, he after having some issues early, he did what he was supposed to do after the fight. He talked about unification, wanting to become undisputed. Hopefully, they can reschedule the fight with Gonzalez, but he also talked about an eventual move up to 112 pounds. So, coming off of a year where he was very successful, named ThreeKingsBoxing.com comeback fighter of the year, highlight reel knockout last year in his regaining of the title against Yabuki. He continues on what has been an impressive role over the past year now. Let's hope he gets that unification bout rescheduled with Gonzalez, because he's the best. As far as I'm concerned, he's the best at 108 pounds. I go to you, Daniel, on the undercard of that. Focus on one fight on that undercard, and that is, we all know about Naoya Inoue, right? Multiple division champion. Just relinquished all the belt at 118 pounds. He became undisputed champion in that division. Well, his brother Takuma also fights at bantamweight as well. Fought a veteran, to say the least, 41-year-old Loborio Solis for the vacant title WBA version that Inoue just gave up, as Inoue's moving up to 122, fighting Fulton in July. I don't know what to think about Inoue after this performance. He won by decision. He's a new champion, but the fight wasn't that exciting to me. I felt that Takuma Inoue, would have an easier time with Solis, as he seemed like he was, I don't know, nervous. Seemed like his feet was stuck in the mud in the early going, couldn't get the punches off. He finally loosened up towards the middle of the fight and really took charge in the championship rounds. But I'm watching this and I'm asking myself, does Takuma Inoue in this kind of performance say that he could take over where his brother left off as being the man at 118 pounds?
It depends on the style that you're looking at. Sorry. It depends on the style that you're looking at, because when we're looking at this fight, you could tell that Takuma does have a lot more of a defensive style than Naoya. In this fight with Solis, he was more or less, for the majority of the fight, the counterpuncher, which worked well for him in instances. It didn't help Solis' case on it at the times where he was able to get Inoue into a corner. His offense was a little bit sloppy, and he wasn't able to land punches that you would think would turn around the fight. Now, there's a case to be made that that there's nervousness about when it comes to a fight like this. Like, you're the younger brother of arguably the most popular fighter in the country, and a guy that's constantly debated to be either near the top, if not the top of pound for pound lists. That's a lot to live up to, even if you're not that far off when it comes to age. So I wouldn't surprise me if he was a little bit nervous, but it was a nervousness that wasn't sloppy to me, because when he was countering fairly well. He wasn't forcing a lot of things in the situations when Solis was coming in with the offense. That's one good takeaway from it. It'll probably start getting better as he gets used to having the belt, gets used to being a champion and challenging the other bantamweights in this audience, knowing full well that his brother is up at least one weight division and maybe on his way by the end of this year, if not next year, to be two weight divisions up. So I do account a little bit nervousness, but it was clean. He countered well as he got later on to the fight. It wasn't, as aesthetically pleasing as what you would expect from the monster. But that's the thing. This is Tamaki. Just like, well, the younger brother. He's not the monster, but he's shown that their family does have skill in the sport, very different variations of it, and it's going to be interesting to see how he makes his own mark outside of Nawa.
Can be argued he's a better defensive fighter than his older brother, but he doesn't have the explosiveness, the dynamism, and the power of his older brother. As a result, he's going to have to work harder to get victories at this weight, right? He's going to have to rely on outboxing guys. He's going to have to rely on going the distance in future bouts. Who does he fight next? Donaire, I think, is going to fight for a vacant WBC title later on this spring, early summer. That's a possibility. It's going to be interesting to see, where Takuma Inoue goes from here, as he stated after the fight. An excellent point, Gail, what you said privately, just because they share DNA, it's like expecting Canelo's brother, Raymond, to be as good as he is. Excellent point. They share the name, they're brothers, they're blood brothers, right? But two totally different fighters, two those totally different styles. Is going to be interesting how long he's able to hold on to that belt. But kudos to him. He knows who he is and what positions and where he stands in the sport. As he said after the fight, I know I will always be Naoya's younger brother, but I accept that, and I'm going to continue on and be the best that I can be. He said his goal is to be undisputed champion, just like his older brother, the Monster. Let's move on from Japan down to San Antonio, back to you, Gail. The epicenter of 112 to 115 pounds, it seems to be quickly revolving around Jesse Bam Rodriguez. We all know the breakthrough year that he had in 2022. Called on late notice to fight for a belt at 115. He beat Quadras for the 115-pound WBC junior bantamweight title, right? First defense, he looked sensational against Tristakot, sort of run to the side. Second defense, not so much, right? A lot of criticism as a result. Decided to move down to 112 pounds. Fight for the vacant WBO flyweight title. Fought Cristian Gonzalez for that belt over the weekend. Fought Gonzalez, who was on the move a lot, so Bam had to come forward, something he's not used to doing. He's more of a sit-in-ring guy who prefers a guy to come to him, right? In this fight, he had to kind of hunt Gonzalez down all night long, who was constantly side to side, back and forth, didn't present a still target. So Bam got the win, but the interesting thing here, the plot here, Gail, is that in the post-fight, Bam revealed that he broke his jaw in round 6. Why is that important? Because in the lead up to this fight, there's been plenty of back and forth between Team Rodriguez and IBF flyweight champion Sonny Edwards. Edwards claims, that he signed a deal to fight Bam, or Bam to win this belt. Robert Garcia, Bam's trainers, refuted that, saying, "Yeah, let's fight. Let's take care of business first. Then sure, we'll fight him." Talk after Bam's win against Gonzalez was a fight between him and Sonny Edwards. But if the fight's going to happen, Gail, it probably won't happen till the end of this year because of what happened in Bam's win over Gonzalez.
Yeah, that was a really unanticipated situation. It was important for Bam not just to win on Saturday, but to look as flashy as he did in the 2 fights prior to his most recent fight on the Canelo Triple G3 undercard, where, he got the win and the outcome was never in doubt, but we didn't get the sizzle, the flash, the movement that we had enjoyed so much against Quadras and especially Sorungasai. I mean, he just picked that guy apart. So here we were again, and I'm almost relieved in a way to hear that there was something preventing Bam from stepping on the gas and getting Gonzalez out of there, which he should have been able to do. He is not a one-hitter quitter type puncher. He's an attrition puncher. But after the 6th round, it was, I imagine, all he could do to just keep himself upright, protected. You don't really want your face hit again when your jaw's already broken. He had a lot to deal with. So the fact that he got to the end of the fight, he prevailed. We're going to have to give him the nod there. He could barely do the post-fight interview. I mean, at the time, we didn't know how bad it was. He was in the hospital for the rest of the weekend, 2 more days and a couple nights before surgery was done. You need to be in a pretty bad way if they're going to have to sit on you, keep an eye on you until you get to surgery. So here we are. That Edwards fight is not going to happen anytime soon. I am thinking about the fighters who we know in recent memory have suffered similar injuries. And the first one I think of is the cruiserweight Jai Opataya, who had a hellaciously broken jaw. I don't think he's returned back to the ring yet.
He has not. He has not. Part of it has to do with some promotional managerial issues, but the other part is from my understanding, it's taken a long time for that not fractured, I believe, was straight broken jaw to heal.
Straight across in 2 places. That fight was last July. I just wanted to check the date. That was July 2nd. So here we are, essentially, that's 9 months. 9 months, almost to the day. And he's still not in the ring. I understand this was a very bad break, broken in 2 spots, straight through. We're going to have to see what happens. The other one that comes to mind, of course, who soldiered through a broken jaw, truly one of the craziest performances I've ever seen under duress, Oscar Valdez, who I'm sure many of you remember his fight with Scott Quigg, where he fought with a broken jaw, a Carson, California fight, I might add, in the rain. And it was just about a year before he got back in the ring. So we need to let Bam heal, let medicine and nature and rehab take its course. And otherwise, Eddie Hearn will have to keep Sonny Edwards and, the rest of the contenders busy. So it may be that we get a de facto tournament and that we end up with Edwards and Julio Cesar Martinez quicker than we thought we might, and let them all fight each other while Bam's healing, so that we end up with one obvious opponent. And in this division, as well as the super flyweight division, these guys are willing to be dance partners repeatedly and keep fighting each other. I'm great with that. I'm fine with that. They're all good matchups. They've all got their assets. They all have a chance. So it's a shame to see Bam out of action, but there's still plenty of fights to be had. But it isn't going to be 3 months. It isn't going to be 6 months. 9 months, I think, would be pushing it, honestly.
100%. for the time being, yeah, Bam Rodriguez, one of the young stars of the sport, he's going to be on the shelf. And as Gail just noted, he's going to be on the shelf a good while. We'll keep you updated here on Pound for Pound Box Report when it comes to the progress, the recovery of Bam from the broken jaw that he suffered against Gonzalez, and when he will get back into the ring. The reason I called this name this particular episode shocking upsets, because there were two surprising upsets of note during this weekend, and the first of which, well, they kind of happened in and around the same time, but I'll focus on the first here in the docket, Daniel, and that took place on the undercard of Rodriguez and Gonzalez, and that is the return of MJ Akhmadaliev as he defended his WBA IBF 122-pound titles against Marlon Tapales, former champion at 118 pounds, right? And I covered this fight for 3kingsboxing.com, and I got to give a shout out to 2K, the man behind Three Kings Boxing. Please check out Three Kings Boxing, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the Three Kings Boxing crew, 2K, Bo, who you've had on the show. He may join us later on this evening, and all the other contributors and staff working behind the scenes. But 2K, during our during a staff meeting before this fight, he said that not only would Tapales give MJ a very tough fight, but don't be surprised if he beats him. So he saw it. He saw it while others didn't, and Tapales ended up winning by split decision. And the thing I noted here, Daniel, in watching the fight, ring rust on the part of Akhmadaliev. He just was not himself for the first half, the first 2/3 of the fight. The movement that we're used to seeing from him, the footwork, the work rate, the activity, it just wasn't there. I know he was coming off of a severely damaged hand. He had it broken in multiple places, coming off of his last fight early last year, which was a stoppage win, right? Against, I think it was Ronnie Rios.
Mm-hmm.
But MJ was not himself for the majority of this fight, and he didn't start coming on until the second half of the fight. And as a result, Tapales built an early lead, a lead in which MJ just couldn't recover from. And him falling behind in the first half, the first 2/3 of the fight, ultimately bit him in the butt and cost him his win.
Yeah, if you look at the scorecards, the two of them that had Tapales winning were 115, 113. The other scorecard that had MJ winning was obscene, 118, 110. It's obscene. But that was the issue when looking into this fight when it came to MJ. Was he just, is it a combination of ring rust? Was it him being gun shy just because of the damage he did to his hand when he knocked out Ronnie Rios? That combination, on top of the fact that Tapales came in with great footwork, willing to exchange when he needed to, and used the movement in the ring to make sure that MJ had to chase him around, it doomed him in the first half of the fight. That was the main difference. Because MJ did start coming on as he got more confident in his hand throughout the second half of the fight. But by that time, you already buried yourself a little bit too much when it came to the scorecards, and it was easy to tell. Now, does that mean that if you do a rematch that you would get the same exact result? No, more than likely MJ would probably come on to a little bit earlier, and you might see more even fight if not MJ winning. But when you have that long ring rust, and if you've ever broken the bone in your body, it doesn't matter how long it takes, you still feel sometimes apprehension when dealing with that specifically with that specific body part. And that's particularly frustrating when your profession relies upon you using said body part. So that's a bad combination to have when it comes to MJ. I don't know what he's gonna do now comes come back, because Tapales and Sean Gibbons. I think I forgot who put it out there on Twitter that they were surprised that Sean Gibbons just didn't have dollar signs replaced in his eyes.
Man, listen.
Yeah, because that unification fight to whoever wins between Inoue and Fulton just became a whole lot easier. A whole lot easier. Unless MJ forces the issue in getting a rematch.
The problem is, I don't think there was a rematch clause. So if he wants to fight him again, running back ASAP, from my understanding, unless one of you could look it up right quick for me, he's not going to get it. And after the fight, Gibbons, we all know how he can be. Say what you want about him. He can be polarizing. Let's just face it. He can be outright annoying. He was already talking about the winner of Fulton in a way, claiming that they're going to be in the building in attendance for that fight. So, yeah, if I'm Fulton, if I'm Inoue, whoever wins that fight, I'm trying to shoot for, no disrespect to Tapales, I'm trying to shoot for him ASAP.
Yeah.
Because let's face it here, he got the win, but Akhmadaliev was not at his best. Akhmadaliev at his best beats Tapales and would be a tougher fight for the winner of Fulton and Inoue when they get it on in July.
Yeah, there is no rematch clause for this fight. However, Matchroom Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn is going to try to strong arm the WBA to get a mandatory and make it happen. Inoue and Fulton is delayed. That helps his case because Tapales is going to sit around for a while, enjoying his belts and his victory, which is not the best thing in the world, while he's waiting for that to be adjudicated and get a result there. And I'm not sure Tapales really wants to play with those guys. I think he may have an equally good shot winning again after, winning in the rematch. The scorecards were narrow, but they should have never even been close. You're right. Not only did Akhmadaliev have ring rust, he was very tentative. And these fighters who think it's trendy or okay or something for them to just let a few rounds go by while they settle in, that is a very bad habit to get into. I'm hearing a lot of rattling going on. I don't know what it is.
Put yourself on mute, Daniel.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just my thoughts only come to me so well, so I need some help. Those rounds they lose from 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 count just as much as the rounds they win in the latter half of the fight. And it gets to the point where somebody has dominated you for the first half of the fight and your corner finally wakes you up and says, son, you need to get moving. The opponent only then needs to win 1 out of the remaining 6 rounds if they've won the first half of the fight. That is a really bad position to be in, especially when you are not a knockout artist. Now, if Deontay Wilder burns off several early rounds, nobody's too worried about it because he's going to change that fight at some point, most of the time, real fast. Deontay Wilder is not worried about rolling up rounds. MJ Akhmadaliev and many fighters like him absolutely do need to be worried about it because they are not one punch knockout artists. Even if they're the kind of guys who can systematically chop the tree down, that is still a very dangerous game to play. play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's what happened to Akhmadaliev, who is the most anonymous unified champion in boxing, or he was. I do have to say, I love it when a guy who's an underdog like Tapales, this is the theme of the show tonight, bets on himself, gets that sort of improbable victory. Here's a guy who's been around, a hell of a long time. He's 37-3 with 19 knockouts. That's a long career. And for him to be overcome by the emotion of the accomplishment, this is what we love about boxing. Absolutely love it. And we had quite a bit of that over the weekend. I love a good upset. He earned it. That 118-110 card for Akhmadaliev. Get the fuck out of here. What are you looking at? We had several really wacky, whacked out of proportion cards. Thank God. That is why they have 3 judges just toss that sucker in the trash.
Yeah, that card from Akhmadaliev, that was some bull.
That was absolute nonsense. The other 2 cards, I think that was a little narrow. I would have given him at least another round, but it doesn't matter. He had enough. He got the win. He's got a lot more options in front of him. And yes, Sean Gibbons, a.k.a. Knucklehead Sean, he's a polarizing figure to a lot of people. But I'll tell you, he stands behind his fighters. He's genuinely happy for them when they win. He's enthusiastic. You know what? You can count me a fan. Yeah, he's a bullshit artist a lot of the time. But, most of his antics are of the harmless variety. And I give him credit for never missing a fight with one of his fighters.
Absolutely. One more fight. I want to focus on this card. I can get this one right quick. Raymond Ford, right? Featherweight southpaw. Been garnering a lot of attention from hardcore heads. Stepped up to the plate and fought Jesse Magdaleno, former champion at 122 pounds. Ford, highly ranked by the WBA at 126 pounds. I had my questions about him, even though I thought he was a talented fighter. But in the biggest fight of his career up to this point, he put on a show against Magdaleno. Controlled the action from jump. Excellent job of using his jab. Excellent job of using his footwork. From a boxing perspective, from a skill perspective, he has it in droves. I know people talk about Shakur and Haney in terms of guys who can really, really box. I wouldn't put Ford in that category, but he's on the come up. I was surprised at how easily he handled Magdaleno. It turned into just a one-man show as he outboxed him in the early mid rounds, early and midpoint of the fight. By round 7, 8, in my opinion, I felt that he had Magdaleno not just physically whooped, but he had him physically whooped as well. Put him down twice in the fight early. I think round 2 it may have been, but he also put him down in the 11th. I thought if he wanted to, if he had really stepped on the gas, he could have stopped him. But in the end, thoroughly dominant performance. After the fight, he's talking about wanting the winner of the rematch between Mauricio Lara and Lee Wood on the 27th of May. I'm not saying that he would beat the winner of that fight, particularly if it's Lara, if he wins a rematch, but I think he'd give him a better fight. And Mauricio Lara, if this came down to a battle of skills, Lara can't hang with Ford. Lara's too leaky defensively. He comes in too wild and wide with his punches. And if Ford were able to not get hit with anything hard, he could outbox, Lara. Same thing for Lee Wood. Lee Wood is defensively suspect as well. So yeah, if he wants the winner of that fight, I have no problem with Eddie Hearn putting him in there. By the end of this year, I will get him in the ring at least one more time, just to showcase him in front of, give him more exposure and visibility for the boxing masses. But if talent means anything, if skills pays the bills, he's right there on the precipice. He's improving with each fight, and I think he's just really starting to hit his stride in terms of his potential. I think he's a future champion. Quick word from any of you guys on the performance of Raymond Ford, whoever saw the fight.
He is definitely a talent to watch. He looked good. Yeah, I feel a little bad for Jesse Magdaleno, who really had dug himself out of a hole. He was in a very bad spot after some of his losses, but he did work his way back to this opportunity. But I think Jesse's done unless he wants to be a name gatekeeper, because Ford just took him apart. There's a lot of good fights out there. I do think that somebody like Lara is dangerous for him, because Laura's, one of Laura's assets is he's so damn unpredictable, because he is a little wild. And it's hard for a skill-based fighter, someone that's very precise like Ford. There's no pattern to a guy like Lara. They're just whirling all around you. They're Tasmanian devil like, and that's very hard to deal with. I do think Ford would it'd be a great fight. I would love to see it. It's quite the clash of styles. Is it a clash that makes for excitement, or is it a clash that makes for two guys who just really can't put a good dance together for the fans? I don't care which one it ends up being, because I want to see it happen.
Absolutely, 100%. Let's move on from that card that took place on DAZN to what happened on Showtime. I'll go to you, Daniel. Brandon Lee, right? He's world ranked at 140 pounds. He has his reputation for being this extremely hard puncher. But as I said last week, I had questions about him. When it comes to this I had questions about him, and when it comes to his upcoming fight against Pedro Campa. A lot of people remember Campa for his getting stopped by Teofimo Lopez last August. And my questions about Brandon Lee remain, right? Campa gave him a tough go in this, and for a guy with this reputation of being such a hard hitter, who being so strong, I was surprised that Campa that he had to work so hard to win this fight. Teofimo, it was a cakewalk for him against Campa when he fought him last year. It was not a cakewalk for Brandon Lee in his win over Campa this past weekend.
No, it was not. It was a much tougher fight for Lee than I think any of us thought before the fight came into, because I have a feeling that Campo had that Teofimo fight in the back of his head. He knew he had to prove himself, because once again, now he's getting put here as the B-side against a hometown fighter who is being positioned to be close to the top of his weight division, if not the top. So he went out and he gave him a hell of a fight. They fought mostly in close quarters. Lee never really got into enough of a rhythm for me to win by the scorecards that they gave him. I don't discount anybody saying that Lee won that fight. I don't discount anybody saying that Campo won that fight. But those scorecards were way too wide in Brandon Lee's favor. And it does speak, unfortunately, a little bit of the volume. So you can, how to match make fighters And this could be a case where Brandon Lee recently probably has been being matched a little bit too carefully, because unfortunately we're still in the culture that is still about the having that zero on your loss column. And you do that often enough, unfortunately, when you get presented with a challenge, which they probably figured, oh, this is Campo, Teofimo embarrassed him, so he should be easy for you. They come in with a chip on their shoulder because they know exactly why you got them for that fight. And with Lee, now it's a question of, are you limited? Is this really all the skill set that you can do? Because
Follow up.
he's been talking.
Oh, my apologies. Go ahead.
No, because he's been talking a little bit about trying to get Ryan Garcia after this. I don't, even with Ryan Garcia's limitations that we spoke about, this fight gave me no confidence in saying that he's ready to take that challenge on.
Follow-up question, Daniel. Does Lee need to change trainers? I think he's still trained by his father. Does he need to move on from his father? Make that tough decision if he wants to be at his best, fulfill his potential?
Yeah, this is a case to me where he has outgrown his father as far as what his father can teach him now. We just hopefully his father understands that, because we know a lot of times boxing nets don't, but some boxing nets do understand that they can only take their fighter or their child so far in their career, and they need somebody else to really guide them in. And Brandon Lee's at that point where you're not seeing improvements in this last 55. You're not seeing improvements. In fact, you might be seeing a bit of regression. And you don't want to hit a stage where you wind up becoming Edgar Berlanga in a way. So it does need to be something looked at, and hopefully his father doesn't stand in the way.
Let's move on to the real reason why this episode was named the shocking upsets, because I'll get both of you in on this one. Started off with you, Gail. Sebastian Fundora, interim champion WBC version at 154 pounds, fought Brian Mendoza, and he was pretty much in control during the first 7 rounds, but the 8th round, surprise, he got caught by a shot above the ear temple area, and then Mendoza hit him with a combination that had Fundora being the meme of the night on boxing Twitter as he went timber. The guy who I like to call the albatross, the stork of boxing, 6'6" of him, went crashing down, didn't get up, and arguably the leading candidate for upset of the year, Gail. Wow.
It is now, and it is also a contender for knockout of the year. So we'll see how long this holds up. It is only April, but what a performance pulled out by Brian Mendoza. He was behind on the cards 60-54 on 2 of them, and there was a single courtesy round scored for him, 59-54, when he changed his life with an absolutely impressive, skilled, thoughtful, cagey series of punches that set up perfectly. He has been doing a ton of interviews in the last couple of days. And if you do have the opportunity to hear him, I would recommend Sean Porter's podcast. I believe that it was recorded yesterday, where he surgically describes exactly how it all went down. But he set that punch up. He caught Fundora with, you would call it an overhand right. But how do you hit somebody, graze somebody hard at the top of the temple with an overhand right when they're 6'6"? Fundora should not have been in that position. Mendoza believes it was that shot on the temple. You know, any fighter will tell you they get hit there and it messes you up. It scrambles your thinking, even if it's not particularly hard, if it connects the right place. Mendoza believes that punch disoriented Fundora enough to drop his guard. And that's when Mendoza smacked him with the most perfectly placed right hook. It froze Fundora in place as he wobbled. You could tell, you know, it's almost like watching somebody literally chop down a tree. The moment where the last saw blade goes through or the last axe falls and that tree wobbles a little and there's that moment of hesitation, and then you know that thing's coming down. Mendoza says he wasn't 100% sure that Fundora was going to fall at that point. He didn't wait around to find out. Once he blasted Fundora with that left hook and Fundora wobbled, he was not going to let that chance go. He came in and hit him again with the same punch and followed it up with a right hook, which was equally as good. Those things planted Fundora backward on the canvas. A guy that big and tall falls, it is an event. It was impressive. And then he sat up on his backside. He just kind of sat there on the canvas. And it looked like, as Ray Corona was counting him, that he was going to get up. But he couldn't do it. In his mind, he wanted to get up, and his body was not willing. And suddenly, this guy from New Mexico, who barely a year ago fought a walk-off swing fight. And if you don't know what those are, friends, that is when you're the fight held on the card as a filler in case a lot of fights end early and they need to fill time. And you are gloved up and you sit around until they call you. And if they don't need you during the regular card, once the broadcast ends and the cameras are off, they let you go do your fight. It is a really crummy position to be in. But he scrambled his way up after a few losses, and it really puts his win against Jason Rosario in a new light because he blasted through Rosario. But Mendoza gave enormous credit to the team he's been working with. And he has been in the gym of Ismael Salas in Las Vegas. And I'll tell you what, not only did we have an upset of the year, possibly a knockout of the year, I'm starting to wonder if we're going to have a serious trainer of the year candidate in Ismael Salas. He has had a really good year. Robesi Ramirez gets a big win last week. His guy was the challenger in the Showbox main event. He got an upset win, and then Mendoza gets a win. So props to Ismael Salas. That has been a really good matchup for Mendoza, who left New Mexico to go train in Las Vegas. I'm dying to see what happens next. Rematch, don't know. The other belt holders, are tied up right now. That's the whole reason Mendoza got the fight with Fundora in the first place, is Fundora didn't want to sit around waiting for the outcome of the Charlo Zhu fight. So Mendoza stepped in. Mendoza's now got the same problem. What does he do? He needs to get back out there. He needs to make hay while the sun shines, and his name is known, and not let a lot of time go by. And it doesn't sound like he wants to or needs to. He didn't really have a scratch on him. But wow, what a downfall for a guy that a lot of us were very excited about in Sebastian Fundora. And yes, he had a very, very tough fight against Erickson Lubin. And in a lot of ways, he barely survived that fight. But did we all miss the writing on the wall? Were we looking for things that weren't there? Who knows? But a lot like Marlon Tapales, here you have a guy who's been grinding, never gave up on himself, found a team who believed in him, kept at it, kept working, found things to work on. By God, he did it. And his message to everybody is, You know, don't let the world tell you can't do something. Go for it. Keep at it. You know, you can do it. What a great inspirational speaker he's going to be down the road when his boxing career is over.
Here's the thing, Daniel. There's always been a lingering question about Fundora, right? Because he's super tall and super skinny for the division. There's been rumblings, questions about his ability to take a shot, right? Up to this point, he's shown himself to have a pretty decent beard. He got put down against Lubin, but he recovered and stopped Lubin, right? But normally guys that tall, of that height, right? Punch resistance. It will forever, people will forever wonder about that kind of fighter with that kind of build. The thing is, I thought that at one point he would get clipped and get hurt at some point in his career. I just didn't expect it to be Brian Mendoza.
I actually put this out on Twitter because as soon as I saw the knockdown, the way it happened, another name came up to me. And because I saw some of the similar things as the fight went on. And that's Jarrett Hurt, a fighter who, while not as skinny as Fundora, was still pretty tall for the division, 154. Had enough physical attributes where he could be a pretty good defensive fighter, but he was, in his case, he was willing to eat whatever punches he was willing to take in order to land his own. And as unfortunately as we have seen, that has not led to good things, unfortunately, in his career. His career has not been the same for the past few years. Fundora, to me, looks to be in a similar space right now. Not so much that he's eating punches to land his own, but that he was giving up a lot of his physical advantages in order to make a fight exciting. He's spoken about this in various interviews because he knows a lot of his fans, where he comes from, are working class, so he doesn't want to put on what you would call a boring fight. He wants to put on fights that it's their money's worth. A lot of times that, unfortunately, when it comes to somebody who's that tall, but who's also that skinny for that height, you're going to get caught. And he got caught really, really badly in this one. And I'm glad people noticed, and I'm glad that Mendoza mentioned that overhand right at the top of the head. Because if you look at it, it doesn't look like anything. It barely looks like it grazes. But once you hit the equilibrium and you land a shot, no matter how hard it is, if you're throwing it with the intent of hitting something, you're going to affect your opponent's equilibrium. Now, Fundora wasn't wobbling. He wasn't doing the stanky leg like Anthony Joshua was against Andy Ruiz when Joshua got rocked in the equilibrium. But he just stalled enough and opened enough. And it was an opening also as well that Mendoza was landing throughout the fight. Not often, but he was landing throughout the fight. The opening has been there. And he just saw it and seized on it. And one thing I'll definitely give credit to Fundora, he did not make excuses. And not an immediate post-fight interview, nor afterwards. He said it. I just got caught. It happens. It's boxing. Just got to get back on the drawing board and go in again. Now, this could turn out to be a silver lining when it comes to Fundora because he is very young still. And granted, his metabolism allows him to do this at 154. But probably for the sake and because of his height, because he still has an advantage, whether it's in 160 or even 168. We have to think about it. We have to really start to think about 168 post Canelo, given Fundora's age. He could still fill out enough where he could still use those advantages. He could still use his height, still use his reach, but have a better frame where a shot like that won't rock him as hard as what it did at 154. Now, can you do this over again in the rematch with Mendoza? Considering that what Gil mentioned, with the only other option is just waiting to see what happens between Mel and Tim Tszyu. I wouldn't mind personally. I wouldn't mind seeing it if I'm Fundora's team, because it took the perfect shot at the perfect angle with the perfect opening for Mendoza to get that knockout. You have enough time now to recreate that scenario and see what you can do to fix it, to make sure that if Mendoza throws that punch again, you either have a better guard or you can angle enough where you can make him miss. But if he doesn't, I don't want to see another Jalen Hurts situation where he takes too many hits or he takes one hit too many and your career is just not the same.
And that's the fear in the aftermath of this defeat from Fundora, because the way he got dropped and knocked out, you wonder if he can recover. You wonder if there's a big bullseye now on his, if there's an expanding bullseye when it comes to his chin, when it comes to his face, where he, put it this way, there's some fighters where you go through not having any much issues, but once you get clocked, once you get really hurt, you get exposed in terms of your chin, and it's easier to hurt said guy from that point on in his career. I fear that could be the case with Fundora. You wonder if there's going to be a mental, physical block with him where punches that would not hurt him prior to this fight will hurt him in the aftermath. It's probably going to be a rematch with Mendoza, summer, early fall. It's going to be interesting to see how he recovers, not physically, but from a mental and psychological standpoint after this just surprising defeat that had shocked boxing fans still shaking their heads. Last bout here, Gail, and then we can go to the news. I'm going to split the news segment up as well. Shakur Stevenson, WBC lightweight eliminator against Yoshino. I have not much anything to add. He dominated from jump, put him down early in the fight, stopped him in round 6. We all know the talent of Shakur. He's ready for anybody at 135 pounds. The only question is, how soon will he get the winner of Haney and Lomachenko?
I think it's going to take some time for that fight to be made, depending on who wins. I don't think Top Rank will be in a really big hurry to put two of their big names together, depending on the condition of the fighters also can make a difference. Now, I don't think we're going to have either Haney or Lomachenko blast through each other or do serious damage, but it can happen. And there are accidents. Somebody can mess up a shoulder, tear something, break their hand. It happens. Even if that doesn't happen, and even if they all say, yeah, I want all the smoke, yeah, I want that, whatever the matchups are, I think there could be a fight for Stevenson before that happens. Part of it also is Stevenson is finally showing himself at this stage of his career to be a main event draw, and good for him. He nearly sold out the Prudential Center in Newark. He had 2,000 more people in the seats than when he was there last time. The gate was north of $800,000, and for a fight of this nature in a major city arena that is not New York, Las Vegas, or LA, that's very impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if Top Rank would like to see him have one more fight before he tackles somebody like Haney. They might be in a little more of a hurry if Lomachenko happens to win. Now, I don't know, is there a rematch clause between Haney and Lomachenko? That's the other consideration.
Do not know.
So I'm imagining if Haney loses, he'll absolutely exercise it. Lomachenko, he certainly hasn't stated that he's getting near the end of his career, but he is the older fighter. He has done almost everything we could have expected him to do in the sport. There really isn't a whole lot more room for him to move up in weight divisions, and he's just never going to be that big. So if Lomachenko wins, that's a little bit different of a story. But we have lots of potential here, a lot of interesting matchups. I think even though they are yapping at each other, there is a basic level of respect, at least accomplishment and skill-wise between Haney and Shakur. But those are two tremendous American talents about to hit their prime, and they're going to need to collide sometime.
Let's move on to some news here. And I'm going to you, Daniel. News broke last night that the WBC ordered a bout between undisputed women's super middleweight champion Franchon Cruz and Shadasia Green. Now, we talked about Shadasia Green at length when it came to her fight against Sedarus, who Cruz defeated to become undisputed middleweight champion, right? Crews-Dezurn with the distance with Sedarus. Green went through Sedarus like a hot knife through butter, stopped her in 6, right? In the aftermath, after that fight, when we did recap that fight, I'm calling for a fight between Crews-Dezurn and Sedarus. It's been ordered now. The question is, when will it happen? Could you see a scenario where Crews-Dezurn could find a way to ease her way out of that fight? Because as it stands right now, Green, the way she's looked in recent outings, Crews-Dezurn has not been in the ring for a while now. I would make Shadasia Green the favorite in a fight against Crews-Dezurn, in a pretty significant favorite.
Yeah, this is not a fight Crews-Dezurn wants. Not at this stage of your career. Not after this day off. I would not be surprised if she does try some WBC shenanigans and just either trying to delay or have them do the franchise tag, the franchise champion, while she claims to do something else in the weight division. Because, in all honesty, I do not think Crews-Dezurn wants any of that smoke with Shadasia Green. And the only way it's going to do it is if she probably doesn't have any other choice. There's still a little bit of time to give her a choice. But hopefully we actually get this fight, because Shadasia Green, she's ready. She's at a point where she should be fighting for a belt. She shouldn't wait much longer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I will give Crews-Dezurn credit if she goes through with the fight. Fingers crossed that it happens. I'm hoping that it happens this summer, because it'll be a heck of a fight, right? Crews-Dezurn, not much of a boxer, but she's physically very strong, and she uses that strength in kind of an awkward style to punish opponents, to kind of bully opponents. But she's fighting a green who has equal size, equal strength, boxing ability to boot with power. A lot of people compare Shadasia Green to Ann Wolfe. Now Hall of Famer Ann Wolfe fights a lot like her, even kind of looks like her in physical appearance. I hope it happens. It'll be an entertaining fight. Let's just hope that Crews-Dezurn goes through with it. We've all anticipated, Gail, that if Canelo is successful in his upcoming fight against John Ryder, Canelo returning to the ring May 6th to defend his undisputed super middleweight belts. Should Canelo win against Ryder, the expectation for the longest has been that he will fight a rematch with Bivol. Well, news report broke today before we went live that Bivol's manager is skeptical that a fight would happen, and he's proposing a scenario, the only scenario where the fight could happen, but it will be at 168 pounds. I wrote about it on 3kingsboxing.com. It's up on the site right now. You can go to 3kingsboxing.com and read my report on it, right? And it seems that Team Bivol, they wanted at 68 to win Canelo's belts. They're not interested in defending his light heavyweight title. His manager is saying that the fact that they're willing to go down to 68, that's the only thing that's really, it would entice them to a rematch with Canelo. Other than that, he really wants to fight Beterbiev at 175, and should he go down to 168 pounds, Bivol's light heavyweight title would not be on the line. Now, if I'm wrong about that, just let me know. But I've only heard of one scenario where a guy could fight for two titles in two divisions at the same time if they fight at a full weight below. And that was back in 88, where Funky scenario where a super middleweight title and a light heavyweight title was on the line when Leonard fought Lalonde. You haven't seen anything like that since. I mean, when Chad Dawson fought Andre Ward back in 2012, 2013, Dawson went down to 168 to fight for Ward's super middleweight belts, right? His light heavyweight title was not on the line. But anyway, what do you think of this scenario where it appears now that Team Bivol wants a rematch with Canelo at 168 as opposed to 175?
Genius. Absolutely genius. That's exactly the right thing to do. Bivol has said his entire career, I can make 168, no problem. I can make 168, no problem. And I've worked with him, and I promise you all, he can make 168, no problem. And why wouldn't he? You know, Bivol's truly big fight, and the goal that he wants to accomplish now is to unify at light heavyweight. He doesn't want to put that belt on the line against Canelo and risk the opportunity. If he loses that belt to Canelo, he has no leverage to unify and get a unification fight against somebody like Artur Beterbiev. It's highly doubtful if Canelo fought at 175, beats Bivol, has the belt. He's not facing Beterbiev. I don't care what the fans say about how much they love it. Canelo didn't look great against a very technical, fast-moving light heavyweight. I think he'd probably be even worse off against a big, bludgeon type fighter like Beterbiev, who can move. He's there to get hit, but I'm not sure Canelo could take it. I think that's a road that just doesn't make sense for Bivol at all. He can hold on to his light heavyweight title, risk nothing in his home weight class, and, roll the dice. he could with a win in one fight against a guy he's already beaten, become a unified champion in a second division. That's worth the risk. If he loses, oh well, he loses. He doesn't give up anything except the O on his record. He gets a massive payday for it because he can hold Canelo hostage. Canelo really wants this. Canelo is so irritated at the fact that he lost. He wants to set things right. It's eating at him. And Bivol and his team, this is the position that you work so hard to get into, where you can hold out for what you think is a fair payday to go up against Canelo and see what you got. The worst that can happen is he loses, he cashes a very nice check that will serve him well the rest of his life and do wonderful things for his family, and still lose absolutely no opportunities at light heavyweight. Now, Canelo can be mad about it, gripe about it. Fans can catcall and get ticked off, but Bivol is in the driver's seat. He's the guy who won. And that is what the winners get to do. Now he's the A-side. Canelo, I am the captain now, says Dmitry Bivol.
Quick word on this, Daniel. Do you agree with Gail? Brilliant move.
It's the logical move to make, because it's true. Like, I've been around Bivol too, and he's always been a small light heavyweight. So going down to 168 was never going to be an issue for him. And he knows that he has Canelo at a certain point mentally that is going to bother him, and people are going to ask him about it on May 5th, on the Cinco de Mayo weekend, when after we all assume he just blasted through John Ryder. The only other scenario I can see happening, and this is just either not Canelo, but so much his team being petty, is them calling Bob and saying, okay, Bivol wants to do 168. How free is Beterbiev? And then make it a point where you either fight for me for these belts, or you fight for the belts that you actually want. I don't think it's going to get to that. I think both sides are going to get to the table and say, okay, 168, that's fine. Because you now need to see, even though he can make it, you still need to see how much of a difference getting down to that weight to fight is gonna matter when it comes to Bivol. Because even though I agree, he can make it easily, but it's always about that extra grind that you got to get through at the end of training camp. That's going to factor into this. It's a good business move for Bivol to do this. I fully expect Canelo to just say yes because he wants this fight. The only other change would be just if his team just becomes petty.
We're talking about Canelo here. It's not the first time that they've been petty. Just saying. Make it unanimous here. Really, really smart move on Bivol. That makes, I mean, as his manager said, he's beat him before. So what's the real incentive here, especially when their first priority is to try to get a fight with Beterbiev? That's their main goal from this point. But if Canelo insists on fighting him again, yeah, go down to 168. You've whipped him you've whipped him. Canelo made the move thinking he was going to be relatively slim pickings at 175 when he went up to light heavyweight to fight him last year. He was proven wrong as Bivol. And again, don't go by the scorecards for those who are for for those who haven't yet to see the fight, don't go by the scorecards. Bivol thoroughly outboxed Canelo that evening. So he beat him at his weight. Bivol says he can go down to 175 pounds. You can't give Canelo any excuses because he would be coming down to Canelo's weight. If he beats him again, not only is that a win, that's just a further embarrassment for Alvarez. So I agree with you, Daniel, 100%. I'm not mad at this move from Dmitry Bivol. You beat him at your weight, go down and beat him at this weight. Just show your superiority all around. And we'll keep you updated on that scenario, on what Team Bivol is proposing in terms of a rematch with Canelo. Again, this is all on the assumption that Canelo is successful in his upcoming fights in May against John Ryder in Mexico. Last news bit here, and I'll go to you, Daniel. While all the boxing was happening this past weekend, it was announced that Claressa Shields is returning to the ring. Going to fight Hannah Gabriels. I want to say the fight is happening in July. Correct me if I'm wrong about the month in terms of her return. I'm happy that she's returning to the ring. First time back since the win over Savannah Marshall, become undisputed middleweight champion, women's middleweight champion for the second time. While I'm happy she's getting back into the ring, am I wrong to be like, when it comes to the choice of opponent? I know Gabriel's knocked her down, was the only woman to put Shields down in her career, but Shields won the most of the rounds in that fight. And at this point, Hannah Gabriels is 40, and she hadn't been in the ring in 2 years. Why should folks be excited at this fight, especially when up until this point there's been a lot of talk about a possible fight between Shields and unified women's junior middleweight champion Savannah Marshall? I mean, not Savannah Marshall, but Natasha Jonas, and you still got the carrot dangling out there in terms of a possible rematch with Savannah Marshall.
It's probably a situation where she didn't want to wait because we know this fight's on the zone, so it's an interesting partner considering the promotional value. And I think, it is going to be in July. It's going to be in Detroit, and it could be a situation that Claressa just wants to get back into the ring as fast as she can. She doesn't want to have that lull in fights. And not to mention, you just mentioned the one angle that makes this fight interesting is that personal grip that Claressa probably has that, you knocked me down, Hannah. I may have won the fight, but you still knocked me down. I owe you a knockout. So that could be the case to it, but it's just another fight in home territory, Michigan. So something to build up on. And it's something to make sure that she's still coming in shape no matter what. If she's waiting for a rematch with Marshall, which wouldn't be a bad fight, or if she's waiting to make that other unification fight at 154. It's just something to keep her busy, and it puts her a platform. The zone is still the zone, and it keeps her busy, and she still builds up her main fight base in Michigan. So it works.
Yeah, I guess she is returning, fighting in the United States for the first time in since 2021. I just think there could have been a better opponent, but you're right, Daniel. This is probably just the main point of this is about Shields herself, a showcase, a fight for her, get this out the way, and then she moves on to bigger and better. Particularly if that bigger and better includes a rematch with Marshall. At some point, summer, fall of this year. Let's move on to preview some fights here. One particular fight I want to focus on. Well, a couple of top fights I want to focus on. A card is happening in London. Boxer Sky. main event, Joe Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang. And last time we saw Zhilei Zhang, very impressive in a defeat in a loss to Filip Hrgović in the Middle East, right? Put Hrgović down. He was in it, Gail, throughout. And there are some who feel that Zhang should have won that fight. It was an IBF heavyweight eliminator. Returns to the ring against Joe Joyce, who just, let's not miss words around here. He pumped Joseph Parker in his last outing, stopped him in the 11th round, just basically just blooded him and beat him up. Joe Joyce was being Joe Joyce that night. He eats up punches like Pac-Man. He comes on like a tidal wave, and he just bullies guys until he makes them quit. Did it with Dubois as well. But he's fighting a big man in Zhilei Zhang. Zhang has promised if he gets the opportunity to hit Joyce hard, he's going to be the first to put Joe Joyce down and out. But we're talking about Joe Joyce, who got a chin of granite. What do you see happening in this upcoming fight, Gail?
Well, I was one of the people that thought Hrgović got a bit of a gift against Zhang. Zhang looked good, but as good as he's looked in many fights. Joe Joyce is just looking better and better. You know, he is the tortoise in the hare. He has just kept at it quietly, deliberately, improving fight by fight. No fuss, just goes and gets his business done. And I think a lot of us thought after the Olympics that, yeah, he's good, but he's not great. You know, maybe there's not a lot more upside. He's a little older than your average fighter coming out of the Olympics. So he's still, I think at this point, he's, you know, I still think of him as a bit of a prospect, although he's starting to enter the upper tier. But I believe he's 39. He definitely appears younger. But there has been nothing but upside for Joe Joyce. He has pleasantly surprised me fight after fight. I mean, he took Daniel Dubois apart. Parker, same thing. I think he'll have a harder time with Zhang. Zhang is a big, immovable force. That is one big man. But he's there to be hit. I'm not sure Joyce could stop him. And Joyce is not a one-punch heavyweight knockout artist like a Deontay Wilder is. He hits plenty hard. But the one-hitter quitter, you don't really see. But hey, he has surprised me with new wrinkles in almost all of his recent fights. You know, there's always been one thing he does, and I think, wait a minute. Has Joe Joyce always been able to move that way or throw that punch or do that? So he could surprise us. I do think he'll take the fight. I do think it'll go rounds. I would bet the over and the decision if I was a betting person. I'm really looking forward to a very action-packed fight. I think both these guys will give an honest, spirited effort. I have seen some photos from Fight Week early on with Joyce and Zhang, and Joyce looks as fit as he ever has. Now, maybe he was wearing a suit. I will admit, you know, it's a little hard to tell, but damn, that had to be the best tailored suit I've ever seen, or he is in the best shape of his life. So looking forward to this event on Saturday. And we don't have a lot else going on in the boxing world this weekend. Top Rank did just add a card on Friday night from Panama. Other than that, we do have a UFC Fight Pass card from LA, one of Tom Loeffler's Hollywood Fight Night cards. Folks, that is it this weekend.
Yeah. Thank goodness, given what we just went through last weekend. So yeah, we need something like because I don't feel like covering that many bouts on back-to-back weeks because, like I said, we talked about it pre-show last week. As entertaining as the fights were, man, there were a lot of them, and I think we're going to shut down things on that. No, one more fight. My apologies, everyone. One more fight. Daniel, I go to you on this one. On the undercard of Joyce and Zilly Zhang, the return of Michaela Mayer. I mentioned how Shields is coming off of the win against Savannah Marshall. On the undercard of that, Mayer fought Alicia Baumgartner for unification, for undisputed at 100 and undisputed for unification unification at 130 pounds. Mayer ended up on the short end, losing by, I believe it was split decision. We all know the beef between Mayer and Baumgartner as they've been going back and forth for a number of years and continue to do so in the lead up to Mayer's fight against Linda Dartow. But the interesting thing here is that Linda Dartow is the only person to beat the aforementioned Baumgartner in her career. She beat Baumgartner a few years back. So that's the reason why this fight is really happening, is a comparison piece where a kind of get back for Mayer for her loss to Baumgartner is to turn around and beat the only woman who beat Baumgartner. That's why this fight is happening. It's happening at 135 pounds, so Mayer is moving up as well. Your thoughts, how much does a Linda Dartow at this point of her career, how much difficulty do you think she could give Michaela Mayer?
She's pretty much a lamb being led to slaughter right now. I'll be honest. She's a lamb being led to slaughter because you said exactly the reason why Michaela made this fight. This is a proxy war between her and Baumgartner. Even if it's in a higher weight class, it's about making a point of, I beat the woman that beat you. So therefore, I still beat you. Even though we can all agree that the judges actually got it right when Baumgartner got the decision. Does it help Michaela a little bit to have that large of a chip on her shoulder? Yeah. It'll probably help too, because I would not be surprised if Miss Baumgartner winds up sitting ringside trying to watch this, much in the same way that Michaela decided to sit ringside in Baumgartner's last fight. And apparently, Baumgartner decided to turn it on her last fight when she probably found out that Michaela was there. It's going to be the same situation. These two are going to keep circling each other until they get that rematch. And unfortunately, yeah, you have a lamb led to slaughter for Ms. Mayer to take out in the proxy war.
Hey, folks, don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Alicia Baumgartner is on the fight call with Matchroom, because they have used her as a commentator before.
But wait a minute, when this fight card is going to be on ESPN Plus?
Oh, it is on. Well, it's still possible. I wouldn't be surprised if she's there. Although I don't think she's completely contracted to commentary only over there with Matchroom and DAZN. We'll see.
Well, let me take that back, because
Daniel is right. She'll be there. There is no doubt she'll be there, and there's no doubt she'll be interviewed. I am sure of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they put her in the broadcast booth, maybe just briefly, and maybe it is just sort of an interview scenario that maybe drags on for a few rounds, not an official commentary position. But, oh, yeah, those women genuinely dislike each other. There's some quality hate. I'm here for it.
Yeah, and Baumgartner, she could very well be there. Look, it's Anicia Estrada, who's now with Top Rank. If she was in attendance for to watch Bam Rodriguez, and the folks who were at Matchroom decide to show her a couple of times during the broadcast, then you could see a scenario where Baumgartner is in the building and Top Rank would mention her or even have her in the broadcast booth for that fight as well. And I think we're going to end on that note. I want to thank G Funky Boxing for joining us. What's up? Unfortunately, you came on right as we begin getting ready to end matters here, but still glad to have you on. If you've not done so, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for anyone else who's checking us out on YouTube, please hit that like and that subscribe button as well. It'll help us with in terms of the algorithms and get us closer to being monetized. Should you subscribe and hit the like button? Going to end things on that note. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, or for those who want to check you out every now and then on TMZ Live. Let the folks know where they can find you.
I have my icon off this week in honor of Brian Mendoza, but I'll tell you, it is easy. It's nyfights.com, nyfights.com. And hey, Jay Funky, y'all should listen to him too. He does some nice work online.
And I'll go to you, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and the Inscriber for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. I do not know. I think they played tonight against the Hawks.
No. Yeah, we took the L. We took the L. The entire state took the L, whether it comes to the weather and then it came to the game. We lost. And it's a playing game, so that means, I think it means we are out. So the Hawks are going to be the 7th seed in the playoffs. So they'll be, I forgot what team they're going to be facing. But if you're Boston and if you're Philadelphia, you are sign of relief because neither one of those two teams wanted the Heat in the playoffs. But definitely, if you catch me on Twitter, folks. RAWKZ99. Definitely catch me on there, because even though the city of Miami is halfway flooded downtown because of serious storms, we did get something to celebrate. We just had the first Marlins player hit for the cycle in MLB history. And I'm actually surprised it took it that long.
Nice. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, Brother JR, at Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance, you know what, on with me on IG and TikTok, you know what it is there, Brother JRSC. And want to give a shout out to Get Right Fragrances, the clean team over at Get Right Fragrances. They sent me a sample. They sent me a sample pack of their line of fragrances, and did so for free. They reached out to me privately. We exchanged info, and they, to my surprise, it was legit. And yeah, they sent me a sampler pack. So if you check me out, if you check out my TikTok as well as my Instagram, I did a short little video featuring the sampler set that they sent me, and gave them a shout out as well. So yeah, Brother JRSC on TikTok and IG. On the next episode, I want to thank once again G Funky Boxing for joining us. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Joy's excuse me, Zilly Zhang, as well as Michaela Mayer in her return to the ring against Linda Dartow. And we will do a preview of one of the most talked about fights of 2023. Finally, it's nearly upon us. We'll do a full in-depth preview, of the fight between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. That's going to happen on April 22nd on Showtime pay-per-view. On the undercard of that fight, you're going to have the return of David Morrell fighting Sina Agbeko. David Morrell, regular champion, WBA version at 168 pounds, one of the better fighters in the division at super middleweight. Also on that card, Gabe Rosado was fighting on that card. Those fights will happen in Las Vegas. Also on the 22nd in Cardiff, Wales, on the zone, Shafkazan Rakimov going to face George Cordina for the IBF 130-pound title. We will talk about that fight as well. So yeah, those fights will be featured in when it comes to the preview segments on this show next week. So yeah, I want to thank Gail. I want to thank Daniel, for Gail from nyfights.com, for Daniel, for Boxing News and the Inscriber. This has been episode 399, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. quick shout out for those who been longtime listeners of the show and who checked out the Ladies Love boxing series. Right on one of the early episodes of Ladies Love boxing series. Um, I want to give a shout out to Tanya, aka Teach Like a Lady, in on Twitter. I think you follow her, Gail. Um, she disclosed that she got her doctorate, right? Um, yeah, she got her doctorate um, in the world of academia. So now she is known as Dr. Tanya. I gave her a big congratulations. You've heard her on one of our Ladies Love Boxing episodes. Been conversing back with her back and forth since her announcement earlier today on Twitter, and we're going to try to work to have her back here on the show again, Gail. So look for a future episode where you will not be the only woman on the show. So we hope soon, fingers crossed, that we will have Tanya back here on a future episode of Pound for Pound Box Report. And again, I wanted to give her a shout out, given the news that she disclosed today. So she's officially a Dr. Gail is on the Pound for Pound Box Report team. I think your mic is muted, Gail.
I was so pleased to see that and congratulated her. That is a long, hard slog. You have got to put one foot in front of the other, as she said. 5 years. 5 years she has been working on this. So I can only see one thing to her other than congratulations. It's that you have to earn it through hard work, dedication.
Right. So yeah, I just want to give her the shout out. Again, this has been episode 399. Next episode will be episode 400. So yeah, for Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Y'all have a good evening. Good night.